Farmers today are facing rising costs, volatile markets, and extreme weather. The A Better Way to Farm podcast digs into strategies to help you take control of farm inputs and maximize profit so your farm can thrive for generations. Remember to take advantage of our free resources at abetterwaytofarm.com. Now, from America's Heartland, here's your host.
Have you ever looked at a soil test and went, wow, that is way over my head? Hey, Rod here at A Better Way to Farm, where we increase yields and improve profits. Guys, today I want to talk to you about some resources that you might use to better your farming operation. In the environment that we're in today, all of us need to take charge of our farming operation completely and totally. We need to have good advisors, people that we can trust. We should have a seed advisor who we have unlimited trust in. We should have a chemical advisor that we have unlimited trust in. We should have a fertility advisor that we have unlimited trust in. And we should always keep learning, and we should always be double checking what they're saying. We should always be willing to ask the question, why? And sometimes we need to ask the question, how? So today, I want to talk about 3 books that are really simple to read that can really enhance your management. They all come from Midwest Labs. All together, they will not cost you $20. Guys, this is a very low investment. The kicker on the deal is they're all very easy to read. You guys know when I do the 12 Days of Nutrients, I dig into a lot of books. I've got textbooks over here that are for master level agronomy majors. I've got one book that's a PhD level agronomy major course book. And guys, those are very, very, very hard reading. And sometimes after I read it, I'm not sure I know any more than I did before. I'm always digging into them, looking for specific things, trying to help to do a better job with what I do. But the bottom line is this. I find that there are some fundamentals that can help me. I like the fertilizer handbook from the Dry Fertilizer Institute that they put out. It's out of print. You have to find it on Amazon just from time to time. I really like From the Ground Up. I like Neil Kinsey's book, Hands-On Agronomy. Both of those are a little bit of a longer, weightier read. But the 3 books that I want to talk about today, and I just got new ones in. The first one I want to talk about is from Midwest Laboratories, and it's called Their Agronomy Handbook. I think it was $10. Now, you can go online, print it off for free, or they'll send it to you, spiral bound, in a very nice book, and you can have that at your library at your desk. The second thing is just a little, basically a pamphlet. It's about 22 pages from Midwest Labs. It's called Soil Sampling and Interpreting Results. And the third thing, Plant Tissue Sampling and Analysis. And I want to talk a little bit about each one of these and how they play in to what you do. Our next podcast is going to be on a lot of the things that I'm seeing come into the marketplace right now, enzymes, moly, and cobalt in particular. And how does that play into these books? Well, I immediately dove in to these books. And when I got into the Midwest Agronomy Handbook, there was a little section in there on moly. And it's a very little section on page 67. And what it says is listed below are the ranges of the available micronutrients that are commonly found in soils. And they said that moly is typically from 0.05 parts per million up to 0.5 parts per million. Guys, that's very, very minute, but that's all that it says. It doesn't have anything on a correlation. It doesn't have anything on a recommendation. It just tells you what you typically could find in soils when you do it. And that is going to play into the next podcast that you're going to get following this one. And so going through this book, there's just so much in here that you can get, and it's easy to read. And it talks about everything from organic matter and how that has to do with the estimated nitrogen release, to suggested average phosphorus recommendations, to sulfur, to your cations. It talks about the salt tolerance of different crops. It's going to talk about your nutrient availability in relation to pH. It's going to talk about your secondaries and your micros and how those play into it and what you should get. It gives you a page on the crop response for micronutrients. Guys, there's all kinds of things in here. It talks about crop deficiency symptoms, so you can visualize what it is that you've got going on. And then in the second part of that same book, they've got a whole section on plant analysis. talking about all kinds of crop monitoring that you can do, talking about the right tissue sampling procedures, giving you the guide and the sufficiency ranges, and just a whole bunch of information that's going to make your life better. And specifically, I'm not getting into that one very much because I talk about it a lot in the fall or in the winter when we do the 12 days of nutrients. But I want to spend a little more time on these two little 25-page wonders that they put out. The first one being soil sampling and interpreting the results. Guys, one of the things that you should find very interesting in here is there's 3 pages on nematode sampling. I have read many places, many times, that soybean cyst nematode is the #1 yield robber of soybeans in the United States, that it causes more loss than anything else. And the fact of the matter is there are other parasitic nematodes that you can test for as well, and they'll talk about that. But when we're looking at those, and all of a sudden we go, oh, it's not that hard to test for, nor is it that expensive, maybe we ought to be running that and seeing if we need to be using a resistant variety. Maybe we ought to be running that and say, hey, is there something that we can apply in the furrow that will help offset or slow down the reproduction of the soybean cyst nematodes? Because there are things that you can do. Obviously, you don't want to spend the money if you don't need to, but I dare say that soybean cyst nematode have been found in every county in the United States that raises soybeans. Perhaps it would be a good idea to take a test and run it. This little book is going to go through all of the different micronutrients, the macronutrients, the secondary nutrients, what they are, what they do. It's a very, very short synopsis. It's like the 12 days of nutrients in a very condensed form. And I would encourage you to get this and read it. It is a simple read. It will not take you an hour. And I've already taken one of these and I've highlighted it and I've turned down the pages and I've drawn, underlined, and just a couple of the 3 things in here that really jumped out to me that are very basic, but they're things that a lot of people don't know. Even, I dare say, some of the people who are working as consultants wouldn't be able to get this correct on a test. One of the things that came out here was it's talking about your ratio of P1 to P2 and how that a 1-to-1, you've probably got a very poor history of fertilizer use, and adding P2O5 will widen that ratio. They talk about if you get it up to a 1-to-1, you're still in the medium to very low reserve, and more than likely you've got iron and aluminum holding on to your phosphorus. And a lime increase or a lime application will probably increase and release that phosphorus as it increases that calcium availability. And that ratio will typically widen just because you put lime on and took your pH up closer to that 6-8 range. And then it talked about the third option where you have a really wide range, not a wide range, but the correct range. The third option would be 1 to 2, P1 of 15 and a P2 of 30, a P1 of 25, a P2 of 50. And that's the ideal range that we want to have in these. And then it jumps into where we really get ourselves in trouble, knowing that that gets really, really wide. We see, and they talk about this in here, that maybe you've got a P1 of 10 and a P2 of 200. So what does that mean? It's real simple. It talks about it here, guys. It means that your response to starter is going to be really, really good as that ratio increases. It means that you probably have a lot of free lime in the soil. And it means that you're going to get an increasing response to the use of sulfur and to zinc. And that banding your fertilizer is a really good idea. These are all things that we talk about. But I love this book because it makes it so simple and so concise for where you can get a hold of it. I'm going to throw the number out now, and I'm going to throw it out again. You can order these online, or if you'd prefer to pick up the phone and dial 402-334-7770, you can get your hands on these. Again, the one I'm working with right now, soil sampling and interpreting results. I'm only going to share one more thing out of it that really jumped out at me, and it was talking about copper. Several factors enter into the conditions contributing to the copper deficiency. Number 1, a soil pH above 7. Number 2, high organic matter soils, in other words, your peats and mucks. Number 3, soils that are getting high rates of nitrogen, phosphorus, and zinc. So when we apply a lot of nitrogen, a lot of phosphorus, and a lot of zinc, we tend to have a shortage of copper. So guys, we want to just know what these things are. Again, I'm not going to read that to you. I want to have you get it, highlight it, make it dog-eared. Let it be something that you use on a regular basis so that you can better understand why you're doing what you're doing. I wouldn't be afraid to use this as a little quiz for the people that I'm working with, because in the event that the people that are giving me advice don't know the very fundamentals that are in this book, we might want to have a chat about what that looks like. I'm going to flip over now and go into the other little 27-page jewel that they have called Plant Tissue Sampling and Analysis. And I'm not getting into the whole deal of whether sap is better or all of that. I'm just going to say, here's a book, get it and read it. It's $5 or less, and it'll talk to you about the things that you can benefit, how that you're going to benefit from doing tissue testing. I love the fact that it says, when should I sample these? It's got right in here when it is that you should do that. It gives a lot of background on it, but the thing that I really love is the fact that I get a lot of people, they call me and they say, hey, how do I know what part of the plant to send in? Well, if you want to test canola, it's best if you do it prior to seed set. And that's the when. And so what do I send? We would take the fully developed leaves from the top of the plant. We would send in about 60 or 70 of those randomly picked throughout the field. We know that field corn, we can test that anywhere. We can do it at V3. We can do it prior to tasseling. We can do it in between tasseling and silking. And we can even do a late season test to see what we ended up with. And so the bottom line is, if the plant is small, we're going to send in all of the above ground portion. And it talks about the importance of not pulling that plant, but cutting that plant. Why do we not pull it? Because when we pull it, it splatters dirt up onto the plant, and then we get a contaminated tissue sample. We don't want to do that. And then once we get farther along and don't have an ear shoot yet, but then we would go to sending in the first fully developed leaf from the top. In other words, where do I have a leaf collar? That's where I'm going to send in. I'm going to pull off that leaf off of about 30 plants and send that in. Once I get to the point that I have an ear shoot, now I send in the leaf that is below and opposite the ear. And it's got this for everything. You want to know how to do sunflowers? It's prior to heading, and you take the mature leaves from the top of the plant. You want to know how to do blueberries? It's in here. You want to know about chrysanthemums? That's in here too. This is a tremendous resource, guys, and I think that for all of us in this business, we need to get prepared. We need to have all of the resources that we can find, and we need to have that in an arsenal ready to go. So guys, if you got any questions on this, or you'd like us to help you get your hands on these, or you got any questions about what you're seeing in there, reach out to us. Anything that we can do to help you agronomically, you can send Karen a text at 641-919-1206. Guys, we really appreciate you tuning in. We love to get to be a little bitty part of your life, and we appreciate the fact that you give us somewhere between 15 and 30 minutes on a regular basis and listen to our podcast. Thank you for taking time today. I hope that planting is going well for you, and as always, we hope you're having a better day.